They say the strongest weapon in a battle is a sword, but they are wrong. The sharpest blade is invisible, silent, and buried inside the mind of your opponent. Every war you've ever fought, at work, in relationships, in life, was never about fists or words. It was about psychology. And here's the truth they'll never tell you. Those who master psychological warfare win without lifting a finger. Today, you'll learn the 5 moves that can make anyone powerless before you. Think about the last time someone disrespected you. Maybe they cut you off in conversation, dismissed your idea, or mocked you when you stayed silent. Most people react with emotion, anger, defensiveness, excuses. But those reactions only hand your enemy the advantage. What if you could flip the script? What if every insult became your weapon, every challenge an opportunity to tighten your grip on power? Stay here, because once you learn these moves, you'll never look at human interaction the same way again.
Welcome to Curiosity to Wisdom. This is not just another motivational video. This is your survival guide in a world ruled by dominance, manipulation, and hidden battles. If you're ready to outsmart anyone, bosses, rivals, manipulators, or even friends, then lock in. Because what I'm about to give you is more dangerous than any secret they'll ever admit.
The first principle of psychological warfare is this: never fight on the battlefield your enemy expects. When someone attacks you, verbally, socially, or strategically, the instinct of the average person is to rush forward with explanations, defenses, or justifications. They believe that honesty will shield them, that reason will restore balance. But this instinct is a carefully hidden weakness. To defend is to admit you have been cornered. To justify is to admit guilt, whether or not you are guilty. The truth is irrelevant. Perception is the only currency that matters. And in perception, the one who speaks least often holds the most power. This is why silence is not passive. It is a weapon. Controlled, deliberate, weaponized silence destabilizes the aggressor far more than any words could. They prod, they push, they provoke, expecting the familiar cycle: insult, defense, argument, escalation. But when you give them nothing, no anger, no denial, no validation, you break the rhythm of their attack. That nothing becomes unbearable, because the human mind craves response like the body craves oxygen. The aggressor begins to suffocate in the silence, revealing cracks in their composure. Picture a scene. You are accused in front of others, perhaps in a workplace meeting or in a circle of friends. The average person, panicked, scrambles to prove innocence, their voice rising, their face tightening. But the strategist, cold, immovable, unshaken, remains still. He lets the accusation echo unanswered until the silence itself becomes a question. Doubt shifts, not toward the accused, but toward the accuser. Why is he so calm? Why does he not feel the need to defend? Soon, it is the accuser who looks insecure, desperate, even ridiculous. This is the balance flipped. You starve your opponent of the drama they feed on, leaving them malnourished in their own hostility. Remember this. Silence is not emptiness. It is a sharpened edge hidden inside a velvet sheath. Wield it with precision, and you will discover that the loudest authority is not the one who speaks, but the one whose silence bends the room around him. The flaw of ordinary men and women is predictable. They are slaves to their emotions, chained to every impulse that passes through their minds. They believe reaction is strength, that anger proves passion, that shouting proves dominance, that vengeance proves courage. But this is a delusion. Every outburst is not power. It is a confession of weakness, a confession of vulnerability. In the instant you lose control, you broadcast your exact pressure points to anyone watching. You reveal where you can be manipulated, where you can be provoked, where you can be conquered without force. Picture a game of chess. The pawn that moves recklessly, chasing an enemy piece without strategy, is always the first to be sacrificed. The same law governs human interaction. Imagine yourself in a conversation at work. A rival questions your ability, casually planting doubt in front of others. The untrained person snaps back, raises their voice, argues, pleads, defends. At that moment, the rival has already won, not because their words were true, but because they dragged you into their arena. They forced you to reveal insecurity through reaction. This is the trap ordinary minds cannot resist. The compulsion to correct, to explain, to set the record straight. They believe they are restoring dignity, when in truth, they are handing it over. Now imagine a different response. The strategist's response. Your rival mocks you as weak, and instead of erupting in protest, you simply smirk and remain silent. That silence lingers like a storm that never breaks. The insult hangs unresolved, circling back to poison the one who spoke it. Why are you not offended? Why do you not fight back? What do you know that they don't? This doubt spreads faster, deeper, and more violently than anger ever could. Your restraint forces them into a spiral of insecurity, while you remain untouchable. Here lies the rule. Never give them the satisfaction of seeing you bleed. Control yourself first, and you control them all. For when your enemies cannot locate your weakness, they invent weaknesses of their own. Every empire of control has been built on this foundation. Perception, not truth, is the battlefield. History is littered with men who commanded not because they were the strongest, nor because they were the most righteous, but because they understood the fragile machinery of human belief. One ruler whispers, and an army obeys. Another screams, and no one listens. The difference lies in the mastery of appearances. Machiavelli observed that it is safer to be feared than loved, if both are not possible. Sun Tzu cautioned that the highest victory is to subdue without striking. Different centuries, different worlds, yet the lesson remains identical. Raw force is clumsy, but perception is precise. You must anchor yourself in this philosophy. People are not swayed by facts, but by the shadows cast upon them. They are not ruled by truth, but by signals, by gestures, by the emotions you allow them to feel in your presence. When you remain calm while others rage, you appear untouchable. When you wait in silence while others drown in noise, you appear prophetic, as if you can see farther than they can. When you display patience in chaos, the world begins to think you command time itself. This is the law of contrast. The less you do, the more weight you appear to carry. Consider the image of a king. He does not need to speak constantly. In fact, the fewer words he utters, the more his court clings to each syllable. A servant who talks endlessly is ignored, but a ruler who speaks only once makes even silence sound like a decree. This is not accident, it is theater. Psychological warfare is not wild chaos, it is deliberate staging. You are the director who controls the lights, the audience, and the script. The others believe they are improvising, but they are following cues you have already arranged. By the time the curtain falls, they realize they were never free actors at all, only characters in your play. This is the weapon you must adopt. You are not here to participate in the drama of others. You are here to orchestrate it. The first of the 5 moves is called the delay. This move is deceptively simple, yet devastating in its effect. It demands that you do the opposite of what human instinct cries out for. Never react immediately. Hesitation, in the eyes of the untrained, looks like weakness. But in the hands of a strategist, hesitation is not hesitation. It is calculation. It is the act of bending time to your advantage. When someone insults you, your blood stirs, your pride screams, your mouth prepares to defend itself. But instead of surrendering to impulse, you pause. You let the silence thicken. You allow the moment to expand until the other person begins to feel its weight. That pause forces them into uncertainty, and uncertainty is the breeding ground of fear. In that space of silence, something curious happens. Your opponent begins to unravel. The aggressor, expecting immediate retaliation, is thrown off balance. They fidget, they backtrack, they start filling the air with nervous explanations and frantic words, as though trying to erase the silence you have created. You, by simply waiting, become the center of gravity in the interaction. Power does not belong to the one who rushes to explain. It belongs to the one who can endure the longest without speaking. Picture this. A colleague blames you in a meeting, their voice sharp, their tone accusatory. Eyes turn toward you. The ordinary man would rush to protest, words spilling out in self-defense. But the strategist? He leans back, folds his hands, and lets the silence stretch until the accuser begins to sweat under the weight of his own accusation. Every second that passes transfers doubt from you onto him. The room begins to wonder. Why are you not panicked? Why do you look composed? Could it be that he is lying? In a single pause, the entire balance of power shifts. This is why the delay disarms aggressors instantly. They expect fire, but you give them ice. They expect resistance, but you hand them indifference. And in that stillness, they tie their own words into a noose. Practice this everywhere. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Don't honk. Someone mocks you in conversation. Don't reply. Hold your reaction like a blade behind your back and release it only when the timing makes it lethal. This is how you turn seconds into weapons and time itself into your ally. Before I reveal the next move, pause for yourself. If you want to master the hidden rules of power, dominance, and influence, subscribe right now to Curiosity to Wisdom. This channel does not give you motivation, it gives you weapons. And weapons are what separate the rulers from the ruled. Now, the second move is called the reversal. It works like this. When someone tries to corner you, flip the pressure back onto them with a question, not an answer. Suppose someone demands, "Why did you fail this task?" Do not explain. Instead, reply, "What makes you think it was a failure?" Instantly, the burden shifts. They must justify themselves. They must scramble to defend their words. This is the art of never answering directly. Questions are daggers hidden as curiosity. They look harmless, but they force the aggressor to expose their own weakness. Use this in arguments, negotiations, even in casual conversation. The more they explain, the more insecure they appear. The less you explain, the more untouchable you become. Remember, he who asks controls the frame. His fifth law. The third move is the mirror of power. If the previous moves were about silence and reversal, this one is about transformation, the art of turning an enemy's weapon into your armor. Human beings are obsessed with themselves. They are addicted to validation, desperate for recognition, constantly seeking echoes of their own words. They do not want truth. They want reflection. This obsession is their weakness, and it is the lever by which you control them. Instead of resisting their insults, you reflect them, twisting the meaning until their attack becomes your crown. Consider the manipulator who sneers, "You're too inexperienced for this." The ordinary person grows defensive, listing qualifications, reciting credentials, pleading for legitimacy. But you, the strategist, respond with ice in your voice. That's exactly what makes me dangerous, isn't it? In one move, you invert the insult into a declaration of strength. Their attempt to diminish you has only elevated you. Or picture the one who mocks, "You're too quiet." You respond calmly, "That's why I hear what others miss." Again, the attack collapses under its own weight. The blade they swung against you becomes the steel of your shield. This is not resistance. It is redirection. They expect conflict, but you hand them agreement, twisted into dominance. They expect to wound, but you hand them a mirror, forcing them to see their own words returned with sharper edges. This is psychological judo. You use their weight, their momentum, their force against them, making them stumble into their own downfall.
Imagine debating with someone who mocks your ambition, laughing at your dreams. The average man argues back, desperate to prove seriousness. You instead say, "It's true, I dream bigger than most. That's why they follow me." Their laughter dies, because what they meant to expose has become your authority. Their weapon has earned into your crown. The mirror creates a resilience that no insult can penetrate. You are not merely blocking their blade, you are transforming it. Every attack becomes nourishment. Every word of contempt becomes fuel. Every insult becomes a throne. The opponent leaves exhausted, unable to harm you, because the harder they strike, the higher you rise. The fourth move is the phantom strike. This is the art of attacking without appearing to attack, of wounding without leaving a visible blade. Subtlety, not force, is the highest form of power. Direct confrontation is noisy, clumsy, and dangerous. It reveals your hand and exposes your intent. But the phantom strike is different. It is invisible. It is the whisper that lingers in the back of the enemy's mind, the small seed of doubt that grows into a choking vine, the shadow that follows them long after you are gone. Instead of lunging forward, you plant. Instead of forcing, you suggest. Instead of striking openly, you infect quietly. Picture this. A rival boasts about their success, filling the room with arrogance. The ordinary man would argue, diminish, or attack head-on. But you, the strategist, reply with calm detachment. Interesting how quickly some victories vanish. Notice the precision. You have not insulted, you have not accused, you have not even raised your tone. Yet your words strike deeper than a blade. They inject poison into the bloodstream of their triumph. Days later, when the applause has faded, your voice still echoes. They wonder, will my success last? Do others see me as temporary? They replay the moment again and again, haunted by what you might have meant. This is the phantom strike. It makes you a ghost in their mind, a shadow that they cannot fight because it cannot be touched. This move is most lethal in professional and social hierarchies, where open attacks carry risk. A direct insult can make you look insecure. A frontal confrontation can rally others to your enemy's side. But a phantom strike, it allows you to dismantle rivals while keeping your mask untarnished. You appear innocent, even friendly, while the poison you planted spreads unseen. This is why kings smiled at their banquets even as they plotted assassinations. This is why politicians and shake hands warmly with men they intend to ruin. To strike openly is to gamble your position. To strike invisibly is to remain untouchable. Remember this law. Visible attacks invite counterattacks. Invisible strikes create ghosts. Ghosts that follow your enemies everywhere, reminding them of your unseen power. The fifth and final move is the withdrawal. At first glance, it appears counterintuitive, even weak. To walk away, to vanish, to leave the stage, this is what ordinary minds associate with surrender. But in truth, it is one of the most devastating acts in psychological warfare. The withdrawal is not retreat, it is starvation. It is the art of denying your enemy the very oxygen they crave, your presence, your attention, your reaction. To withdraw is to remind them that you are not bound by their game, that you can disappear at will, leaving them stranded in a battlefield of their own desperation. Human beings are addicted to response. They insult because they crave a reaction. They provoke because they desire recognition. They demand attention because they fear irrelevance. When you withdraw, when you vanish without explanation, you deny them all three. You starve them of the drama they feed upon. And in that starvation, something strange occurs. The absence becomes louder than your presence. The silence begins to echo. The void begins to expand. And the enemy cannot stop themselves from filling it with fear, with regret, with endless speculation. Think of the lover who suddenly goes silent,
whose messages stop, whose presence vanishes without warning. Their absence becomes unbearable, more haunting than any argument ever could. Think of the leader who withdraws before striking, making rivals paranoid, causing them to waste energy preparing for an attack that may never come. Think of the rival who suddenly disappears from the arena, leaving everyone asking, where are they? What are they planning? When will they return? The withdrawal infects the imagination, and imagination is the most dangerous battlefield of all. But remember, withdrawal must be precise. Too much absence and you are forgotten. Too little and its power is lost. Used sparingly, it becomes unforgettable. Tea makes every reappearance feel like an event, every return like a revelation. The silence you leave behind will replay in their minds long after your presence is gone. They will analyze your last words, your final look, your final gesture, haunted by the possibility that you will return at a time of your choosing. That is not weakness. That is not loss of power. That is power perfected. Now imagine these 5 moves unleashed in the theater of real life. You are seated in a boardroom, the air heavy with rivalry. A colleague, eager to draw blood, hurls accusations in your direction. The ordinary man would leap into defense, words spilling out in frantic justification. But you do not. You invoke the delay. You pause. The silence stretches. Eyes shift toward your accuser, doubt rising like smoke. Every second you wait tilts the balance until their own words weigh them down. Without lifting a finger, you have already won. Later, in a heated argument, another opponent presses hard, demanding answers. The average soul scrambles to explain. But you remain calm, wielding the reversal. Instead of defending, you ask, "What makes you so certain?" The burden flips instantly. They stumble, caught in their own net, forced to justify what once felt like an attack. Their aggression collapses under the weight of their own explanation. At a dinner table, surrounded by peers, someone mocks your silence, hoping to humiliate you. You summon the mirror of power. With a faint smile, you reply, "Yes, I am quiet. That's why I hear what others miss." The room shifts. Laughter dies. The very insult meant to belittle you has transformed into your crown, reflecting dominance back upon them. In the crucible of negotiation, where tension coils like a serpent, you deploy the phantom strike. A subtle remark, carefully placed, undermines your rival's confidence without ever appearing hostile. "Strange how quickly some deals turn to dust," you murmur, smiling faintly. Nothing direct, nothing overt, yet the seed of doubt roots itself deep, haunting them long after the conversation ends. And finally, when a manipulator grows too reliant on your presence when their game feeds off your attention, you vanish. The withdrawal, silence, absence. The void you create becomes their tormentor. The Outsmart. You replay your last words, search for your shadow, ache for the reaction you denied them. Their power collapses in the vacuum you left behind. These 5 moves are not mere tricks. They are laws of perception, weapons of psychological war. They reveal the hidden battlefield beneath every conversation, every glance, every word. Once mastered, you will realize, power is not the loudest voice in the room. Power is the voice that echoes even in silence. That is the transformation. No longer prey, no longer equal, but predator. Understand this with absolute clarity. The battlefield you are entering is not paved with blood, steel, or open combat. It is invisible. It exists in the unspoken pause, in the silence that suffocates, in the unanswered question that lingers like a ghost, in the insult reflected back as armor, in the calculated disappearance that starves an enemy of breath. This is not war in the primitive sense. This is war refined to its purest form. Psychological warfare. It is not violence, it is precision. It is not chaos, it is orchestration. It is the ability to bend human instinct, to manipulate the reflexes of pride, fear, and desire until they serve your purpose without ever realizing it. Most people are chained to reaction. Their chains rattle the moment they are provoked. They defend, they shout, they explain, believing this makes them strong. It does not. It exposes them. You will never be chained. You will never scramble to prove yourself to anyone. Where others bleed through their words, you will remain untouchable. Where others exhaust themselves seeking validation, you will remain silent, untethered, beyond their reach. While they waste energy proving, you conserve energy positioning, calculating, maneuvering, until every move you make lands not like a plea, but like a verdict. With these 5 tactics, the delay, the reversal, the mirror, the phantom strike, and the withdrawal, you rise beyond the ordinary game. You outgrow the predictable instincts that enslave the masses. You no longer explain, you no longer defend, you no longer justify. Instead, you calculate, you maneuver, you strike with elegance so sharp it appears effortless. This is not merely strategy, it is evolution. It is the transformation from prey to predator, from participant to orchestrator. From today forward, etch this law into your mind. The one who controls perception controls reality. And perception itself is nothing but a shadow. Yours to shape, yours to distort, yours to weaponize. Outsmart anyone, outsmart everyone, and never forget, silence is not emptiness, patience is not weakness, and withdrawal is not surrender. These are your weapons, unseen, unspoken, and unstoppable. Wield them, and the world will bend before you. Machiavelli.